Okay, so I wanted to make a video to tell you guys a little bit about what our unborn baby has been officially diagnosed with. It's called Bladder Exstrophy Epispadias Complex. First off, why I'm making this video. There's three main reasons. Number one is this is just how my brain copes. I have a very analytical brain, and researching, documenting, gathering information, it helps me cope. I panic if I don't know enough about something. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's true. Number two is for all of our family and friends who genuinely want to support us emotionally and don't know anything about this, but would like to understand what it is. Most likely, if you're not in the medical field, you probably have never heard of this. So that's another reason why. And number three, in the long term, and probably the most important reason, is to hopefully help another panicking mom or dad who just got this detrimental news that there's something not right about the way their baby is growing, because that news is really scary. And if I can help even one family, one grandma or grandpa or sibling or best friend even, to better support their family through this trial, I want to be able to do that. So that's why. When we first got in touch with the team that's going to be helping us through this, one of the team members is a social worker, and she told me something that at first it offended me because of the fact that in my heart I knew it was true, and it made me feel like a horrible person because it was true. And what she said is that it's important to let yourself grieve, because you're grieving a loss. You're grieving the loss of a typical child. I think it's incredibly important for anyone with a special needs kid of any sort to come to grips with that and be okay with that. I myself have suffered the loss of miscarriages as well, and I'm not comparing this to that because it's a different loss, but it is still a loss. So all this researching, planning, documenting, it's helped me grieve and cope and find yet another purpose. Just like when I first found out that my middle son has autism, I researched, I learned, I documented, and I try to educate people about it. Just like when I adopted 3 kiddos through the foster care system. That journey was and still is an amazing adventure. And it has its downs and it has its ups. And I want to try to help people know what to expect if they're going on that adventure. So, with God's guidance, I want to try to help people find their new normal in this adventure. If it's you guys going through it with us, the Clark crew, and or if it's somebody who doesn't know us at all who happened to stumble upon this because they are panicking because this term just got brought up into their life. I want to help that family as well. So without further ado, let's get into the actual info. Quick disclaimer though, obviously I'm not a doctor of any sort. I'm only now recently learning all of this stuff. What I'm going to share with you today is a compilation of things that the team that's going to be helping with our son has told us, information that I've found through my obsessive searching, and talking with a fellow mom of a boy who is now almost 18 and was born with this same condition. This video is obviously not meant for medical advice, and it's just for informational purposes, all that jazz pertaining to Trenton's unique situation. Every case of Bladder Exstrophy Epispadias Complex is unique. Okay. First off, why have you probably never heard of this? It's very, very rare. Only 1 in about 40,000 babies is born with it. For a digit brain like me, that means that if 3.8 million babies are born in the US every year, which is the average, 95 babies will be born with some form of BE. If you divide that again, that means on average, every state in the US sees only about 2 cases per year. I think that's one of the scariest things about this to me, is that surgeons don't deal with this very often. That's terrifying. What we know so far about Trenton's Bladder Exstrophy Epispadias Complex, BE, it's caused the bladder to form on the outside of his abdominal wall. And it's also basically inside out. So instead of a sphere, like normal bladders are, that holds urine, it's actually a flat disc that just seeps urine. The epispadias part of this diagnosis means that his little boy part is splayed open rather than being a tube. And his urethra is not properly or fully formed. The exact severity of his urethra we can't really know until he's born. Going off of 2D images, MRI scans, and ultrasounds, you can only see so much. But the epispadias is the reason that all the sonogram techs originally thought that he was a girl. We had pictures of what looked like a little girl part, and that's because of his little boy part being splayed open. This defect also affects the way the pelvic bone forms, or rather is malformed, as he grows in the womb. As of right now, unlike a healthy pelvic bone that you can feel through your own skin right above your pubic area underneath your belly, he doesn't have the front of that there. It's also splayed open a bit, with a void there. As for what causes it, they don't actually know what, if anything, actually causes this deformity to happen. only that it begins happening very early, around 6 weeks gestation, when the cloaca, which is the where the reproductive, urinary tract, and digestive openings all come together in the abdomen, is when that begins to form. It just forms incorrectly, and in this case, the bladder gets left on the outside. For less severe variants, it's assumed to happen a little later than 6 weeks, but sadly the MRI has made it clear that he does not have a less severe variant. Now, with that said, luckily the MRI has shown also that he does not have the most severe variant, as his kidneys and spine appear to be fine and properly developed. So that is a blessing in this. I know that he has very good use of his spine and his legs because he kicks me often. So that's a bright side. The biggest question I'm getting is, how will they fix it? I've been asked by a couple of people if surgery is necessary. Yes, absolutely. He has an internal organ on the outside of his body. He's going to need surgery. He will most likely need more than one throughout his life. The biggest and scariest one is going to be done at about 3 months of age. And that is the very first surgery. It was actually just until a few years ago most common to do the surgery in the first 72 hours of the baby's life outside of the womb. They did this based on the assumption that the bladder could not survive outside of the abdomen, but over time, with several late diagnoses in some third world countries, they have found that the bladder can in fact survive waiting for a while, and waiting can actually allow that bladder disc, which is what the bladder is referred to when it's outside like that, to grow a bit before surgery, allowing for a slightly bigger bladder. Now, his bladder will still be extremely small compared to a normal person. He will have to have frequent potty breaks all of his life. That's one of the things that comes with this pretty much across the board. Anyway, it also allows the baby to grow and their lungs and heart to develop further and be stronger before going under this major surgery. I mean, you can imagine how hard a long surgery with your abdomen cut open is on an adult person, fully grown. Compare that to a 7-pound newborn, only hours old. Okay, that's obviously, it's best to wait any amount of time that you can to give them a better chance of making it through the surgery in the first place. Waiting also allows that initial bond between parents and the baby to be much stronger. Compared to when they took them back immediately, the baby had to be put into a traction device and thus not able to be held for the first many, many, many days of their life. So this way we can actually take him home and as a newborn, breastfeed him, hold him, love on him, bond with him before that surgery. So there's some physical and some emotional aspects to why it's best to wait now. Barring any unseen elements of his condition so far, we know this is about how the surgery is going to go. It's a really long surgery. It's about 8 hours long on typical basis. It will be a team of multiple doctors and nurses. An orthopedic team will essentially dismantle his pelvic bone to allow room for the bladder to be put where it needs to be. The urologist team will be doing that. They will move any organs that need to be adjusted to allow room for his bladder, as well as actual reconstruction of his bladder to turn that disc into a sphere that can actually hold urine and hopefully function basically normal. Once his bladder is formed and put into place, the orthopedic team will take over again, essentially reconstructing his pelvic bone so that it will hopefully hold his bladder correctly and his hips. During the surgery, the urology team will also reconstruct that little boy part to hopefully achieve normal use of it and the urethra. As for recovery is going to be a long, hard, drawn-out process. Initial recovery includes him being in a traction device that they will put in during surgery. It's going to allow his pelvic bone to heal properly and stay where it needs to be to protect all of that and hold his hips correctly. This device includes 2 pins stuck in each of his pelvic bones, right by the hips, and in the bar that goes across the front to hold them in place. He's going to need to be in that device in general for about 8 weeks following the surgery. And he will have to stay in the hospital for at least the first 2 of those 8 weeks, possibly the entire 8. The possibility of us bringing him home after the 2 weeks depends on how extensive his reconstruction ends up being. Again, we don't know the full extent because 2D images, as well as how well he starts healing afterwards. So I've also been asked a lot, how can we help? And as of right now, it's all in God's hands. I have 2 to 5 weeks left of this pregnancy. My doctor and I are leaning toward the 2 because he is growing fast. He's been measuring about 3 weeks ahead for the past 3 weeks now, so I'm really not sure how much miraculous healing can be done in that amount of time between now and birth, but all we can do right now is pray and pray hard. So that's what I've been asking everybody to do. If you want to help in a tangible way, we do have a baby registry on Amazon, and we are dreading how many diapers we're going to be going through. With a physically typical newborn baby, you can expect to change a diaper every 2 to 3 hours. With Trenton, however, for the first 3 months of his life, he's going to be constantly seeping urine. So we will be going through a lot more diapers than normal. A lot more than 10 changes a day to keep him clean and comfortable. So we've decided to use a combination of cloth diapers and disposables, and both of those are on our Amazon gift registry. Gift cards could be given to if you guys want to help with that way. Anything you can do is much appreciated. But most importantly, I'm mainly asking for prayers. As for once he arrives, of course, more prayers. And providing all this COVID crap is over, or at least has settled down by then, inviting my big kids over for sleepovers or just taking them to the park for a few hours, that could help not just us, but them too. Welcoming a healthy newborn into the family is hard enough on siblings, but this is going to be very, very, very daunting on everyone. So if the kids can get out and away from the special needs baby drama now and then, I am positive that that would help them cope. Next stage would be recovery time after the surgery. That will probably be where we, and any other family who goes through this in the future, is going to need the most help. At that time, I will be asking my friends and family to help where they can, possibly with meals for my kids to eat. I will not be home much. I will not have time to cook when I am home. So, not having to eat McDonald's all the time would be great. Chris and I will be taking turns to being at the hospital with Trenton and being home with our 4 big kiddos. So anyone who would want to take a shift here and there so that we could actually be together through this process would be greatly appreciated. We know this is going to be hard on our kids, but we also know that it's going to be hard on us. But we're holding each other together through this. And I think that's really important. I am so grateful to have him through this. I cannot imagine going through this alone. Sorry. And of course, during that time, if any sleepovers could be done with our other kiddos, that would help a ton. If we just didn't have to worry about them for a few hours, it would be great. The hospital is over an hour away from our house here in the country, so we will be doing a ton of driving. So again, if you want to help in a tangible way, to-go meals, meal gift cards, and gas cards are probably the most beneficial, tangible way you could help with that, hopefully 2 weeks of time where we're driving to and from the hospital every day. And of course, keeping us in your prayers. After Trenton has recovered and healed, man, that is a time that I have not thought much about, but I'm trying to really hard for my peace of mind, trying to imagine life past that surgery, because getting past that surgery is going to be the scariest part. So please, please, when we have a healed and happy baby boy ready to be shown off and loved on, please make plans to come over or invite us out to meet up and love on our kids. They are all going to need it. And while they all know right now that Trenton is going to be a big handful and that his defect is going to be a lot to handle, they all love him so much already. They really, really do. They're all worried about him and wanting to show him off and wanting to protect him and teach him and hold him. They're all so excited for his arrival. but also scared about the unknowns in his very near future. So again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, please pray for our kids. Pray for peace of mind and patience and their faith and trust in God through this trial. So, yeah, that's all I've thought of so far. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to ask. I will do my best to answer them to you, and like I said, I will be making more videos in the future. I want to, like I said, help any future families going through this. I know that chances are, because of the numbers, nobody else is going through this at the exact same time as us. But anyone who happens to go through this in the future, I want to help you, whether it's 2 weeks from now or 10 years from now. Please feel free to reach out to me. I am terrified. I am. But I want to help others as much as I can to be less terrified themselves as they go through this. So with that said, God bless.